Hi, I'm Bill. I work for Dominion Technologies, and I'm here to do a video on a rebuild for a coolant adapter. It's a 625X-31945-BET. This is the adapter right here. It's for coolant. It's got a lot of porting up here at the top. 3 jaws, hanger bracket called a lug, a couple of looks like number 10 fittings. Looks like it gets a 3/8 scavenge, but this here is like a valved adapter. It's a valve coolant adapter. So I'm going to start off by disassembling it. Then we'll look at some of the details. I'll tell you a little bit about cleaning them up, deburring them, a few things, and then I'll reassemble. For right now, the disassembly starts right here at the bottom. I have, as far as tools to take it apart, I have my metric Allen wrenches. I have a couple of crescent wrenches, just in case I need a little bit of extra torque. I have a couple of screwdrivers and I have a makeshift tool. It's 3 small paper clips. I use them just like I do on a brake adapter, valve brake adapter, to hold the valve spools and valve glands over the valve seats. I have a little cup here that I put my lubricant, G-Man PST 407. I have a little cup here that I put my lubricant in so I can just dip my finger in there and lubricate the O-rings. Okay, for the disassembly, I start off on the bottom here. There's 3 M4 screws, and I'll loosen them right down here by the jaws. This here's kind of backwards. The adapter sets kind of up too, so you can point it towards you and just unscrew all those screws there. There's only 3 of them. But while you're doing it, you can like visually inspect the jaws and the sleeve where the ring insert's at. As you see, the screws will fall out, no problem. And I can pull this cap off. It's a sub-assembly of its own. Once I get that off, I'll set it to the side. Now, I have this piece here with my thumbs. I will push down and pull the sleeve up. Wiggle it a little bit till I get this sub-assembly out. And I have the sleeve apart. Set that off to the side. So you see there's an O-ring that just dropped out. Goes right up here. Now that I've got it out, I will take my jaws and I'll push them out with my finger and give it a twist. Just kind of lift it up and give it a twist. And it comes up off of the garter spring. And I'll set the jaws off to the side. Okay. I will take my hand and I will hold here and I will hold where the jaw assemblies were on the garter spring. And I'll twist. And I can pull the guide off where the jaws are in. And I'll set that off to the side. Now I can push with my thumb the piston and loosen it and twist with a little twist. I can pull that out. Now if you want to disassemble these like this, you're going to have to lubricate them when you put them together in the assembly. If they're not lubricated, it makes it that much harder to take apart or assemble. After I get these details separated, I'll focus on this detail here, where I have 3 M4 screws that are one right here and these 2 right here that I will loosen to disassemble this sub-assembly. You can set it flat. And I will take the first 2 screws out and I will set them off to this side. I'll keep these 2 assemblies separate. Now, as I take this assembly off, it's going to raise up because there's some spring tension. It's just the springs for the vacuum, fill, and scavenge ports for the valves. It's a shorter screw than the other 2. Okay. Now I'll set the top half off to the side and I'll focus on the valve assembly. The bottom piece is off to the side. I will pull my valve glands off. And now I'm looking at them just to see if they're dirty. I'll pull my springs off. And I will set them off to the side. Now I'll take my Allen wrench and I'll tap inside the spool to get the valve seats out. And they'll just drop down to the bottom. Set the O-rings up here, and I'll move the valve seats off to the side. Now with my thumb, I'll push the valve spools just to loosen them and pull them out. Sometimes you'll have to twist. You might even have to use a rag once you push it to get a grip of it and pull it out. But if you properly lube it during the rebuild and keeping the maintenance up, you shouldn't have to do too much struggling with it. Now that I've got that off, I have my valve cooling adapter, my BET, all in pieces. Now I'll take from the tool kit, which supplies you a bag of picks. I will take my pick out so that I can start pulling the O-rings off. Now, as you can see, there's a few small O-rings right here, kind of stuck to the side. And I will just take those and place them off to the side. And then I'll pick the 3 O-rings out of the gland pockets. Set them off to the side. Those are all the O-rings for the manifold. So I'll set that down. Now I'll have the spacer that sets between the manifold and the valve cell. I have an O-ring right here that I'll just lightly push the pick in without gouging the aluminum, and I'll set that off to the side. Then I have an O-ring on the side here that I'll lightly push my pick in and twist and pull it off and set it off to the side. Once I do that, I can set my spacer back off to the side here. Now I'm going to take the O-rings out of my valve cell. I have some small porting O-rings right here on the one side. I'll pull them out. And when I flip to the other side, I have some more. And I'll pull them out and set them off. Any stragglers can go to the side too. Now, I have an O-ring right inside here. It's in this groove. And that's where the valve spool slides in and out. And it's a sealing O-ring that seals around the surface of the valve spool right here by my finger. I will pull those out of each orifice. Lightly using my pick to pull them out. Sometimes they come out the back too, so once I do that, I'm free to set this to the side. Now I got my valve gland. There's an O-ring right here on the inside of the valve gland. I will pull that out. Just lightly putting my pick inside the O-ring groove and doing a little twist. They come out pretty easy. I'll set them off. Then I have my valve seats. They have an O-ring right here that has to be changed. Now, we pretty much change a lot of the O-rings on a rebuild. Sometimes they don't seem like they need to be changed, but they are getting compressed because your valve spool is seating on the O-ring with spring tension. And then when it's open for flow, it's pulled off of the valve seat, and the flow goes through the holes on the side of the valve seat. But you can see where it gets sealed, so you might think that these don't need to be changed, but they're getting a lot of work. Every time you open and close, open and close, open and close, you're pushing on this O-ring. Sometimes they get distorted. So I always change them during a rebuild. You just that's the only O-ring on there. Then I'll take the valve spool, lightly push my pick in between and give it a little twist, and the O-rings on the valve spools will come out. Now that completes that subassembly over on the manifold side. Now I'll go for the piston subassembly. I will pull all the O-rings out of the piston. And there's an O-ring on the inside right here. And I will sometimes you can pull it right out the back if it flips in the back. And then I have an O-ring right here on the outside. And I'll flip this off. Then I'll pick up my piston. And I'll take the O-rings off the piston. No other O-rings. I'll set it off to the side. Then I've got my guide, or it's where the jaw is set. It's actually called a locator, detail 003. 764413 is the detail number for this part, but on the print it's a detail 003 as far as location where the O-ring goes, and it'll go right here in this part. Now, I have an O-ring on the inside. It's right there. You can just see it. And I will pick that one out and just push it out. And that takes care of all the O-rings. Now I have a garter spring that holds the jaws, and I will pick that out just like an O-ring. You can just roll it. It's a spring, kind of rolls and twists up, as you can see in my hand, but you can undo all of that. Just kind of give it a little bit of a roll and a twist, and it should be back to round. I'll set that off to the side. If they get all bent and the springs are stretched, the coils are stretched, you'll want to change it. A lot of times you don't have to because it's not a seal and it's not getting swelling or breakdown or anything like that. If it looks like it's still holding its tension and doing good, sometimes you can keep the girder spring on. But in your seal kit, there will be another one if you need it. But if it's not distorted too bad or stretched out, I sometimes would not even change it because it is a spring. Now, I'll take the sleeve, and there should be one O-ring right here in the middle of the sleeve, towards the top. Now I can kind of push that, and just push it up, And then you can just catch it from the back and then pull it right out. And that's pretty much it for taking off the O-rings. Now I'll look at the parts for scarring, where it rides up and down inside of the ports. I'll look for nicking or dirt and debris, and I'll clean it out. Here's a chip right here that you can see that I just popped out with my finger. Now, I'll take a light file and just go flat like I would a surface block stone, just to smooth the top off lightly. If there's burring, and I'll inspect for any nicks and scratches and anything that's getting in the way of the surfaces that are riding on each other. And I'll do the file on all the parts, just so they stay flat for sealing purposes. Now I would also clean, like this O-ring groove right here. If you take a rag and just kind of fold it up and stick it inside there, you can clean that. Enough for you to rebuild in a pinch if you needed the adapter pretty quick. Once I get them all cleaned and deburred and check the threads, to check the threads, all you have to do is take the screw and put it in, and if it screws by hand all the way down and then unscrews, the thread should be good. If you're getting any sticking or crossing of the threads, you don't want to go and tighten your screw in there. You want to back it out and take an M4 tap and open it up a little bit, or put it all in a box just like this and send it here to the Dominion, and we got people who will rebuild it. Okay, once I get that, I'll wipe it out and clean it out. I will start to assemble the adapter. Now, I can start here, I can start here, I can start here. It's up to you how you want to start it out. But on this adapter, I had it all apart, and I pulled all the separate O-rings off of each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a part and start putting O-rings on. I'm going to start with the spools. Now, on your print, it shows you the spools are right up here. It tells you 110 is an O-ring that goes on these two bigger spools. So I go over here to 110, and I see that two O-rings, and they're a 2-020E. E is for EPR. So I go over here to my kit that has a print on it, doing the same thing. Now sometimes you have to take a magnifying glass to this print because it is small. But if you do, you can see it, or if you got one of those lighted magnifying glasses that come off on the arm over your bench, that helps. But I'll go up here to 110, and I will pull a 2020 O-ring out, two of them, to put in and you pretty much got the idea of what I'm doing now. I'm looking on these prints to see what O-ring I need for each detail. Okay? So 2020 is right here. That will be these. Now the bags are marked inside the kit, so and I will take a little bit of lube out of my little lube bucket here, and I'll be doing that for most all the O-rings, actually all of them. You don't put an O-ring on without lubing it up. And I will lube it up. You want the moving parts to move and slide easily. So I will lube this up, and then I'm going to, just like you pack a bearing, I'm going to pack some lube inside of these valve spools and their O-rings, so that it lasts a little while in between rebuilds. And I'll take the excess, and the valve spool is ready for assembly. And I'll set that off to the side. And pretty much the rest of this video is going to be kind of boring, because that's what we're going to be doing, just lubing up these. So it's nice to have some music on. But if you pack these up pretty good, the adapter will work a lot better. If it's dry and you forget to lube it, you'll know it, because the adapter will react sluggishly. Okay, now I'll pull the O-ring for the smaller spool. So I'm looking at a 108. It's going to be 2016. I'll pull a 2016 out for that spool. Once it's all good, I put it on. Stretch it out around there, and then pack the O-ring groove with grease, with lubricant. Now I'm going to grab the valve seats, and I'm going to put the O-rings on the valve seats. 114 and a 115. 114 is a 2105 and 115 is a 2109. I get two of the 2109s. And one of the 2105s. I'll lube them up real good. So everything seals better with a little bit of lube, and I will use my thumbnails to push until it snaps right on. I'll lube these two up real good. And you can see that they're not really sloppy lube, but they're lubed up pretty good. I'll push with my thumbs on both sides evenly until it snaps right in. There. Okay, now the valve seats are ready. Now I'll take and I'll put a little bit of lube on that 37, 45 degree angle, because there's an O-ring that seals on that. And that'll help it slide so it doesn't get pinched in between the walls where it sets. Okay, and I'll set those off to the side. Now I'm going to do the valve glands and the valve cell, because the same O-rings in these valve glands go in the matching ports of the valve cell right in the center. So now look right here on my print, and there's the valve gland, and then down here is the valve cell. When I look up here, 107 tells me I need 5 2015 O-rings. And that's for your vacuum and your fill ports. So I got the 4 out for that. And I'm going to get 2 for the scavenge. Will be right here and right here, and that's going to be 106. 106 is going to be 2 2012s. And I'll pull out 2 of those. Now, first I'm going to do the glands. So I take the smaller 2012-012 O-rings. I'll take the smaller one and I'll set it on top of that gland. Then I'll take 2 of the 015s and I'll set them on top of the glands. Once I get them lubed up, I take and I put them in to the groove, the O-ring cutout groove, and I make sure that they're pressed in and sealed. Now, you can also do it this way. And then push down from the top until you get it inside. Then you can smooth it down. Same thing with this one. As I push it down in there, get it into the groove, then I push down with my fingers until I can get it all the way in. Once that's in, these are off to the side. Now I do the corresponding. I drop the larger ones in to the larger port. I drop the smaller one in to the smaller port. And I proceed to use my Allen wrench and then push it in with my fingertip and my nail until I can seat it inside the O-ring groove. Sometimes it takes a little messing with it, but it gets in there. Once they're seated, then I can set them off to the side. Now I take my spacer. I'm going to put this large O-ring here and the one on the outside on. I can see on my print, my spacer is right here. That's the spacer, and you can see the little angled cutout on the print, how that angle is going up. It's a 007 detail 764417 spacer. Okay, so on the spacer, I'm going to need a 123. A 123 is going to be O-ring 2141. There. Now I'll put my 2032 O-ring in. I want to make sure I get it lubed on both sides. And I'll set it in, and the lube helps keep it in there. There. Now make sure that I got lube all the way around it, and now my 2-141 go right here on the side. When I get that in, I will pack some lube inside. You don't want to put an awful lot on there. I mean, I like wipe off some of the excess, but I use it on the facing that's going to get seals on it because it helps seal the faces. Okay, once that's done, go to the other side, and I'll put some of the extra on my fingers on the other side's face too, because there are O-ring ports that are going to be sealing on here. Okay. Now while I'm on this side right here, I'm going to lube the walls of this port right here. And the facing. This inside and this facing right here. Okay, now once I do that, I am going to put my valve spools in. They kind of go in crooked a little bit until you find the seat, and then you can push them by hand. Then you want to push it like back and forth, make sure it's moving nice and smooth. And I'll proceed with the next one. And I'll make sure it's moving nice and smooth. Then I'll do the final one. Once I get those in, I will put the two larger springs are going to go on the two larger spools. The smaller spring is going to go on the smaller spool. Now, you've seen my special tool in my brake adapter video. It is a paper clip. It's a paper clip. What I'm going to do with this paper clip is I'm going to take this hole right here on the valve gland and put it over top of the spring and match it with a corresponding hole on the side of the valve cell right there, and put the paper clip in to hold it down. So I face it towards me, I line up the two holes, and I push it down and twist it a little bit until my paper clip fits in there and my gland is held down. That helps with being able to maneuver the part without anything falling. Makes it a lot easier. You can put it together without it, but you'll have to compress everything all by yourself. It can be done. Here's the next one. Sometimes they don't want to just work for you. And then the last one. Now wipe my hands a little bit. Now, while I've got it there, I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant right here on the faces of the bottoms of the valve glands, because there's an O-ring that goes in the bottom here where these set for sealing purposes. Now, I am going to pull the O-ring for that final part so that I can assemble. Oh man. It's going to be a 109 and a 107. 109 is a 2018. 107 is a 2015. The two 2018 EPRs and one 2015. I lubricate them up. And what I'm going to do is just drop them in the ports, and then they fit in an O-ring groove seat, and I gotta kind of push them down with the flat so that they set in there in the center. Okay. Now you want them to set flat and right down inside the O-ring groove for them. So you just kind of tap them a little bit and they drop right down in there. Once I do that, make sure everything's got a little bit of lube around the face there. I'm going to put my O-rings in these small O-ring ports right here. And that's going to be 2004 EPR. So I'll set a small handful down. And I'll lube them up front and back, and then place them in their O-ring grooves. O-ring pockets. There's three. There's 7 of them on this side. And I want to make sure that they have lube on front and backs because it helps with the sealing. If I can't get my finger in there, I use the flat of my Allen wrench. Now, once I get those O-rings in, I will set. I'll turn this sideways so I don't lose those small O-rings, and I will set this on top here. And I'll leave it set there for a few minutes while I put O-rings in the ports on the opposite side. Making sure that I lube them both on both sides. And there's 4 on this side. Now, I will make sure that this here is lubed, my valve seats, and I will take my valve seat, set it flat, and slide it till it falls in, and it sets down in the pocket kind of flush. Not all the way flush, but kind of flush. Sometimes it doesn't go in the first time. There you go. Now it's down flush. I don't want to force it in because that'll just distort the holes. It could cause a leak. Once that's in, I will get the O-rings that go on the outside there. That's set on the flats. 111 and a 108. And on your print, you can see it sets right there off to the side in between these 2 pieces for sealing purposes. That's going to be 2024, 2016. These O-rings here have a habit sometimes of getting pinched. So you want to make sure that the surface inside here, the 27-degree angle on these valve seats, are lubricated pretty good so that the O-ring slides on them and doesn't get pinched up here on the wall with this wall, because that would cause a leak. So I make sure the O-rings and all the surfaces that it seals on have lubricant on them. I don't have to get it all sloppy, but I got to make sure that there's enough. And then I put the O-ring right down in the side, in between the wall. And once it's all lubed up really good, odds are that it's all going to slide in there nice and seal nice. Now, I make sure one more time that the face has enough lubricant on it that those O-rings are going to slide. And you can see the small valve seat and the two large valve seats with their corresponding orifices of the two same sizes and the smaller size. I'm going to match those up. Now here's the trick. Okay. I take the smaller of the screws and I can hold it with my finger, as you can see where it's coming up, and I can match the orifice right here, the thread, the screw thread right here by my top finger with that screw. And I kind of just tip it over and screw it in. I get it snug. Then I drop the other two screws and I can set this down flat, holding a little bit of pressure on it. After it's lined up, and I can tighten these two screws right here and snug them down. And once everything is snug, I can pull my paper clips out and I can tighten this sub-assembly up. Once I get it tight, I give like a little extra tug just to make sure. It's not much, it's not a lot. I don't want to break my Allen wrench or snap the screw, but I want to make sure that it's tight. because it's all got a seal. Now that I've got that done, I set it off to the side. And I start my O-rings for this side, for this sub-assembly. Okay. Now, normally I would pull the other garter spring out of the kit, but I'm going to keep this garter spring here because there's nothing, no damage to it. What I do is I put it in the center and I use my finger to spread it out slowly so I don't distort it until it snaps right into the groove. Then I'll pull my O-rings, which there's 2 O-rings for this. You got an O-ring groove right here on the side, and you got an O-ring groove right here on the inside. So I will pull those. 2, 1, 2, 2, and a 2027. 2, 1, 2, 2. That's right there. 2027. So set to the side. Oh man. I'll put some lubricant on this one, and I will kind of bend it. I will put it inside the groove. You can see, and then I'll push, and it'll snap right in there. And I'll put some lubricant on this one. And I want to make sure it's lubricated pretty good. And I will put it around right here on this end. And that right there is your 2027. Now, this inside one, just like the others, I'm going to pack it like a bearing, because you have a piston sliding on there, and it's nice to have all that extra bearing packed lubricant inside of there. Once I get it packed, I'll clean the excess out. And I will lubricate the side of the piston with it. That's going to be moving in and out of another bore. Now I'll put the O-rings on the piston next. Got a 2, 1, 2, 3. It's going to go on the outside. And I have a 2, 1, 1, 5. It's going to go down here on the nose. And they're EPRs. You can tell if it's an EPR, it's usually got dots on the black O-rings, or it's a purple. Now, I'm going to lubricate the piston one, and I'm going to put it on in the groove, and I'm going to use my thumb to just slide it in. I'm going to lubricate the main seal, and I'm going to pop that in the same way. Now, I'm going to pack this seal just like a bearing, fill in that space, that groove space in between the O-ring and the wall. Once I get that, my cup makes it easy to scrape some of the excess off my fingers, and I'll wipe it off. Now the housing, I'm going to lubricate the inner wall because the piston slides in there. Yeah, I'm going to lubricate it. It's not sloppy, but I'll clean the excess out. At least the wall has lubricant on it. And I'll wipe the rest off nice and thin. And then I'll lubricate the wall here. Now I'm going to put 2 O-rings on. An O-ring on the groove outside here, and there's an O-ring that goes right inside this port right here on the wall to help seal the piston. And this one is to help seal the wall on the inside of the sleeve on the outside here. And it's going to be 1, 2, 2, which is 2, 1, 3, 9, and a 1, 1, 7, which is 2, 1, 1, 6. Lubricate the 2, 1, 1, 6 up, and then I'm going to kind of fold this one and just kind of stick it right up in there, and it just curls right up into that groove, and then you can push the rest with your finger right here, and it just snaps right in there. Okay, now I'm going to pack that O-ring in there as best I can with some extra lubricant, because the piston right here slides up and down inside of that port. And that'll give that piston a little bit easier movement, and it'll allow for you to take it apart easier when you get ready to rebuild it the next time. And I'll take the excess and I'll just put it on the wall in here and wipe it out. Now, the larger O-ring here is going to go on the outside. This here is your 2, 1, 3, 9. Goes right there, as you can see. And then I take my thumb and I just slide along and it snaps right in. Again, I'm going to pack this one. If the seals were dry, the adapter would stick. Okay. Now, for those of you with sensitive skin, you can always use a rubber glove to do the seals. Now I got this orifice right here, and then these O-ring orifices right here on the top 3 of them. And that's going to be a 118, which is a 2119. Now I will put this one in right here. And I will kind of pack it just a little bit. Okay, you can take the extra out in the ports. There. Okay. Wiping the excess off just a touch. I'll take my 004s, lubricate them on both sides, and put them in their O-ring grooves corresponding. And now I should be ready to start assembling. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the piston and I'm going to push the piston through. And now, with my thumb and my finger, I'll slide it back and forth and make sure I'm getting good free movement, which I am. It's pretty good. Okay, now I will take and I will line up my screw holes right here. And you can see that they somewhat form a Y. Not an X, but a Y. So it's only going to go on one way. You'll get 2 screw holes to line up and then the other one won't. Means it's wrong. It only goes one way. So I'll find the Y, which I've got the Y. And I've got the Y. And I will take and line up the Y's. And I will push this piece on. Now I can move it with my hand because it's lubricated pretty good. And I can snap it on. I will take my screws and I'll twist this until they match, and I'll put the screws in just so I keep it lined up. Okay, now you can see the screws all falling, it's all lined up properly. Now I will take my jaws and I will put them down, seat them in the pocket so that they rock right there on that edge, and they'll spring back up. But it's got a free movement right here at where my fingernail is. You want it to freely fall right into there. Okay. I'll put one more seal in. This here is number 2-138 seal. It goes in the sleeve. It goes right in here. Second groove down. I get it all set and then I just work it in. The sleeve was pre-lubricated. I'll put a little bit more lube on the outside, and we can put the sleeve on. Now, I will take my sleeve. The side I'm showing you right now is not the side that this sub-assembly detail goes into. You can tell because there's no ring insert on the outside. It's a hardened silverish colored metal. It's a hardened steel like 4140, and it's for the jaws to ride on. It's on the other side right here. That is the side that you want to put this detail into. And set it until you can push it down. And as you notice, my thumb is in between the jaws so the jaws don't pinch my finger. Okay? This here's how you want this detail to look when you push that in there. Once you get it to there, you can flip this over, try and hold your screws in, because you're going to line those screws with these 3 screw holes. Again, you have to find the Y. There's your Y, and there's your Y. When you have that, you can actually keep one screw in, hold it with your finger, and line it up with the screw hole. Then you push once you get it lined up, you can push your sleeve down. And you can take and screw your screw in until you feel snugness. Then you put the other screw and the other screw, and you should be able to line them up because everything's already lined up and seated in there. And you can tighten them up. Once they're snug, then you just go around like a car tire. Oops. Go around like a car tire until they all start getting snug. And then you can tighten them up. And once you get them tight, shoot for that little bit of extra with your finger. And that should do it. Now your coolant adapter is assembled. You can just wipe off the excess greases and take it out on the line and run it. Or bench test it first if you got a bench test. You can always sit at your bench and shoot some air through the ports here to see if the locks lock in, if you can hear the valves shuttling back and forth inside, or feel them with your hand shuttling back and forth, because these holes right here are the spring holes and air shoots out of them when it's moving. So that's how you put together your coolant adapter. If it doesn't go together right, you can always put it in a box and send it here to us and we'll rebuild it for you.